Adams Phipps, right? Oh, I got it. Victoria Adams Phipps from New Orleans Business Alliance, and she's going to tell you about the rest of what's going on. While our panelists take their seats.
Perfect. Thank you so much. As Scott just mentioned, I'm Victoria Adams Phipps. I'm the Vice President of Programs at the New Orleans Business Alliance. First and foremost, I just want to give a big thank you to the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation. They have been an incredible partner. Thank you so much for collaborating with us on this vision and allowing us to drop into your Sync Up calendar. So please give the foundation another round of applause. So to give you a little bit of background on the New Orleans Business Alliance, before we jump into this program, we are the official economic development engine for the city of New Orleans, specifically looking at Orleans Parish. We're a public-private partnership that's focused on holistic economic development. That means we're attracting new businesses, we're growing existing businesses, we're revitalizing neighborhoods, and we're facilitating new career opportunities for our local talent. Economic development matters because people matter. At the Business Alliance, we're focused on creating economic opportunity for all New Orleanians. And clearly, a critical piece of that would be our cultural community, our creatives, our musicians, our talent. So we're working to ensure that our culture bearers, our artists, our musicians are a part of that conversation and a part of the economic vision for the future of our city. For too long, we feel that the creative community has not had a seat at the table, and we're hoping to change that. As Scott mentioned, this event is the first in a series of initiatives and events that we'll be hosting with the goal of ensuring that you all are a part of the conversation moving forward. We're seeking to grow the cultural economy with tactics like tonight's event, which is focused on increasing your individual wealth building opportunities, but also with tactics that are going to increase the opportunities within the broader industry as a whole. So thank you so much for joining us in that. Before we jump in, once again, thanks to the Jazz and Heritage Foundation, but also want to shout out our other partners in this initiative, the Louisiana Economic Development Group and G&O Inc. We're sponsors of this initiative, so thank you so much for that. I know Tara's in the building, so thank you. And we want to thank our community partners, Ashley Keaton and Jean with the Ella Project, Hannah Krieger-Benson with Mackinac, Reid Wick and the Recording Academy, and of course the Musicians Union. So the generosity of our partners is really important. Everything that we do in this community, if it's going to have impact, it has to be done with community buy-in, right? The partners that we have allowed us to do something really special for you guys, and Scott sort of alluded to it in his opening remarks. The first 50 folks that sign up with the Ella Project, which is at a table right now, right in our lobby, we will be fully subsidizing the cost to register the copyrights for your catalogs of music. So for those of you that have pieces of work that you want to get registered, start leveraging for some of the opportunities we'll be talking about tonight, the New Orleans Business Alliance will actually be covering those costs in full. So for the first 50 folks that sign up, the Ella Project is located right in the lobby, ready to serve you. So with that being said, I think we need to jump into our panel. I have 3 distinguished guests with me tonight, and I think they will do a much better job introducing themselves than I ever would. So would love to just go down the line, tell us who you are, what you do, and why you're here.
My name is Jay Weigel, and I do several things with regard to this panel. For one, I'm a composer, so I do a lot of work writing music for film and television, but I also help a lot of the productions in town find musicians for all on camera and kind of sometimes go to the filming and the shooting to supervise and make sure the music's played back correctly. So I've been able to be involved with it, from being commissioned to write stuff to licensing stuff out of my catalog that I've built up over time, and then actually doing underscore. So that's
awesome.
Me.
Welcome.
My name is Tim Capel. I'm a music attorney here in in New Orleans. My firm is based out of Nashville, but I live here and represent mostly New Orleans-based artists. Some of my clients would include Big Freedia, Tank and the Bangers, PJ Morton, Sweet Crude, among others. So I do a lot of licensing on their behalf and catalog management.
I'm Robin Burgess, and I have a management firm here in town I have represented Oscar winners, Tony Award winners, Emmy winners, Grammy winners. I myself am a Grammy nominee, and I've been working in management for over 25 years. I've worked on about 30 albums and over 50 films, licensing and work-for-hire projects, and I'm happy to be here today.
Well, let's give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you guys so much for being here. So the goal of today's conversation is to talk about money, really talking about copyrights and licensing as a means of creating multiple revenue streams for our, artists, particularly through the lens of film and TV, which obviously all three of you guys have prolific experience in. I'd love to get a sense first and foremost of who's in the room tonight. So how many songwriters do we have with us? All right. Musicians? Any filmmakers, folks working on film scores? I like it. Anyone else? Ooh, yes, sir. Who are you?
My name is Jesse Brown. I'm a musical inventor, and I'm a ventriloquist and musician combined together.
Fantastic.
Style of music, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Was there another hand? Yes. Fantastic. Any other producers in the room? Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. It's always helpful to know who we're speaking to. So to jump right in, sort of talking about copyrights, because I think to jump off into licensing, we sort of have to have a starting point. Technically, as soon as you create something, you write down those song lyrics, you record that song, you own that copyright. But as I understand it, the issue is really being able to prove that you own it in the court of law. We've all heard the stories about mailing yourself the song in the mail in order to prove the ownership or something to that effect. My guess is that the three of you would not recommend that to the folks in this room. So Tim is our attorney on the panel. Can you give us a Cliff Notes version of what are the basics of copyright, what does that mean, and what can you do with it once you have it?
Yeah, absolutely. So in prior copyright acts, copyright registration actually used to be a prerequisite to copyright ownership. But since, for a number of decades now, that is gone. So as you point out, once you fix your work in a tangible medium of expression, is a legal term, then you own your copyright. Okay? You have ownership of that copyright without registration. You do not need to register it. We'll come back to that because registration is really important. So what is it that you own upon fixation? You own the right to reproduce the work, to distribute the work, to prepare derivatives of the work, to publicly perform the work, and to publicly display the work. So those are the rights that are made up when we talk about copyright, that's what we're talking about. Those rights vest with the author of the work. The author is sort of a term of art. In most cases, it's the people that are the person or persons that are providing creative contributions to the work and causing its creation. In the case of a work for hire, the employer or commissioning party is deemed to be the author of the work. But that's who those rights vest with. And so it's really important to, when you're creating with multiple people, to make sure that everyone is aware of who is going to be considered an author, who's going to be considered a joint author, because the legal ramifications of that are very serious. Registration of a copyright is an important piece of the puzzle here, for the main reason that, one, you can't even get into court to enforce your rights without a copyright registration. That would be point number one. So if you ever see your work being infringed and you have to go to court to enforce those rights, without a registration you can't get in the door. That's point number one. The timeliness of the registration is really important too, in that if you put your work out into the world, if you publish it, you put it on SoundCloud, what have you, anytime it's generally available to the public, and you don't have a registration before you do that, then you lose out on the opportunity to recover what's called statutory damages under the Copyright Act, and also attorney's fees. And what the practical effect of that is that most people of modest means are locked out of the judicial system, not because, okay, well, I've got my registration, now I can get into court, but it's a matter of paying for it. Who's going to pay for it? Attorneys are expensive. Litigation, especially in federal court, is ridiculously expensive. And so the opportunity to recover statutory damages and attorney's fees is often that carrot that will get you legal representation on a contingency fee basis. In other words, you don't pay unless you win. Now, there is some talk right now about creating a copyright small claims court. That's one of the pieces of legislation that Congress is currently considering, but as of right now, that's not the case. And so having that registration, not only just having a registration, but having a registration before you publish your work, and technically it's within 3 months of when you publish the work. You have a 3-month grace period. But you should register your copyright before you publish it, put it out into the world, or at the very least within 3 months of doing so, or otherwise you'll forever barred from having statutory damages and attorney's fees. So I think that's the main importance. There are evidentiary things that go along. You know, if you have a registration, then it's presumed to be valid and all that stuff. But more importantly, I think, is your ability to enforce your rights, and that's what a registration provides.
Sure thing. So you touched on, I don't know, can y'all hear me? Sounds like my mic might not be working. Hello, hello? Can y'all hear me all right? Yeah? Okay. So you touched on releasing your music online. You hit Spotify, SoundCloud. Those are ways many independent artists are growing their fan bases online, and I think in many instances they're releasing things quickly and not going through the steps in advance to make sure they're registered. So what sort of risks are you really opening yourself up to in doing that, and how would you recommend folks in this room really move forward? And this is really a question for the full panel. For an independent artist that is trying to grow their fan base online, realistically, how should they be navigating that?
Well, I can tell you from my perspective, the registrations are important, but to me, and this is driven largely in part as my perspective as the lawyer involved, having your paperwork in order, not just your PRO registrations and your copyright registrations. Let's take one step back, and that is a lot of my clients are creating works with other people, and there's a question as to who's going to own what, right? So if a producer is making a beat and then the lyricist comes in and puts lyrics over it, they may just go out into the world without any sort of split agreement or administration agreement regarding who's going to own what and how those rights are going to be administered. And that's all fine and well until money starts getting made. Mm-hmm. And that's when disputes happen. And frankly, that's the worst time to be trying to have that argument, is when there's money on the table. Sure. Because everybody's got a vested interest. So from my perspective, making sure that you have proper catalog administration, which starts with making sure that you have collaboration agreements with your co-writers.
Sure. So assuming I have my copyrights, I've got my music online, I've got a couple gigs lined up, I'm going to shoot this one to you, Robin. What can I do at that point? If I'm an independent artist, I'm trying to expand my body of work, potentially get my music in front of some folks that might be interested in it. As a manager, what would you recommend they do?
This isn't going to be a popular answer. It's really not. I mean, there is no formula. I would love to say that there is one, but there really isn't. I mean, I would be disingenuous to sit here and say, well, you should do this and this and this, and that's going to be the key to success. My experience completely in all of my years of doing this has been that there are just opportunities that arise. Mm-hmm. And how you handle yourself with those opportunities is what makes the difference between success and failure. For me to say, well, if you follow this 10-step program, you know, your music is going to get exactly where you want it to be, it probably won't. Mm-hmm. So there is no roadmap. It's just making sure that you do all of the proper things that he just told you that you need to do, so that you're prepared for if this great opportunity does come around, you've done everything that you can do on your end to set yourself up to make sure that you're successful and to make sure that you have access to the revenues that are rightfully yours, and so that you can then see how this machine works.
Sure. So in thinking about that machine, I know one of those critical components would be the music supervisor. So thinking about the gatekeepers, can one of you speak to what is a music supervisor?
Can I just?
Absolutely.
You can say what a music supervisor is, and then I'd like to give my opinion of the music supervisor.
Your opinion?
I love it. I love it.
In case there are any here, I won't say any opinionated. I'll leave that one to you. Yeah, in film and television projects. A music supervisor is, and it's a fairly new position in the world of entertainment. I don't know, it's 20, 30 years old now. It hadn't been around that long.
And I think it came about as a popular position because of Maureen Crowe. And Maureen Crowe was like the largest music supervisor in Hollywood. She was actually the music supervisor on The Bodyguard, and she was responsible for that soundtrack and for Whitney Houston. So because of Maureen Crowe's success, this became the golden child of the music industry in film.
And what they do a lot of things. For one, they handle all the legal aspects. Doesn't mean they're handling the legal aspects, but they're interfacing with the attorneys that are handling the legal aspects. They then do negotiate with the people who have a catalog and are managing. They seek music that for the what we call source music in a film. They're looking for music that's not being commissioned for the film, but is going to be in the film that might already pre-exist. Or if they need a song written, they're going to recommend songwriters. They kind of become the interface between the producers and directors and the music world. Because there are, as Robin, you know, in the film world, a lot of people who make great films are often feel very uneducated about interfacing with the music world. They're very intimidated. We have our own vocabulary, and part of your job as songwriters and as composers is to allow people to not be intimidated, to be able to talk to you about what they want in a way they can express it, and you translate that into what they're trying to really say. And that can be challenging, depending on who you're dealing with. So that music supervisor, in theory, would be someone who helps with that translation and helps at times defend something you've written that the director doesn't quite get. They might try to go, oh, look, you're not understanding, this is what we're going to do, and kind of act as a go-between while handling all the legal, while negotiating fees, handling the music budget. So they're kind of, in a certain sense, an executive working on the film, managing the financial part and the legal part of all the music that's going to be in the film. I mean, it's sort of like that. Is that a fair kind of summary?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think one of the things, I'm sorry, one of the things that is interesting about music supervisors is that sometimes their ego also gets in the way of the project. You know, because their vision, they want their vision to be larger than the film or larger than the television show. So for me, I prefer working directly with the director without the translator of a music supervisor. Because oftentimes that music supervisor wants the soundtrack to be more important than the film. And that kind of myopic vision with what kind of music the music supervisor wants to have in is sometimes completely the polar opposite of what the director wants, what the composer wants, and perhaps what the film needs. So even though this position exists to be a facilitator, sometimes they work as an island, music supervisors, and that's not always beneficial to the project as a whole.
I'm sure we all have, But I'm going to circle back just for one little second. Because Tim, you know, you laid out very formally, so to my ear, what you need to do when you're collaborating, et cetera. And as a guy who does it, look, this is really very easy if you just know how, if you just have conversations with a co-writer. You know, I just did a piece for NCIS with a co-writer who's in California, who I did something here, sent it to them, they put their part on, sent it back. But up front, we had the conversation. And we wrote each other, and I said, this is how we're going to split the publishing. This is how we're going to split the writer share. I will have admin over it so that I have freedom to license it however I want to. Any opportunity you have, just call me. And we just, I mean, really a 5-minute conversation covered everything that you really needed to do if you know how to have that conversation. Now with players, what I always tell people, I don't care if your mother played drums on it, have her sign a piece of paper that she did it as a work for hire, or if you're going to do it through the union, because that can really come back, it'll bite you by biting maybe the person licensing it who wants to see that paperwork so they don't get a call from someone saying, well, I played on that, I contributed, I should have part of that. Because they'll just, what I have found in our business is it doesn't take but 1 or 2 mistakes and the phone just quits ringing. It is quick. They don't want to deal with this trouble. Because it can hold an entire film, can be held up because you didn't have a piece of paper that said that you own the rights to that musician who played on your recording. So it is incredibly important, and really not that hard. You have a lawyer prepare. I have the same contract I use for every musician now. After 30 years, it's the same piece of paper.
Sure.
They just sign it, and if they don't want to sign it, okay, I'll get somebody else, or if it's through the union. But those are all conversations I have up front before I hire them. So they're not coming in and being surprised by it. And that's just really important communication.
Sure. So it sounds like step one is make sure your house is in order.
Yeah, most definitely.
It sounds like there's a little bit of luck involved, and a little bit of respecting your own journey and not expecting it to be formulaic. For the folks in the room who believe they, might have music that will work well for film or TV, are there things they can be doing to make sure they are getting themselves in front of those decision makers, be that the director, the music supervisor, or just someone who might have someone's ear? Are there places they should be frequenting? Are there things they should do online?
If you have access to people that place music, by all means, make sure they get to hear what you have to offer. But is there one way to do this? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I would say that you also have to maybe get outside of your head. So let's say that you know that you write country music, right? But you're going to, you meet someone that, a director or a music supervisor, or someone that does, a certain kind of film, and you've never seen country music in that. Don't waste your time. Because whatever that project is, it has a look and it has a feel, and that's what that person wants. So don't try to put what you create into something that is not going to fit, and then think that, oh my God, I'm not going to do well in this industry because this person didn't accept my contribution. Your contribution didn't fit for that one project. Doesn't mean that your contribution can't fit somewhere else. So you have to be really smart too in what you have to offer and where that can be placed. Don't think that your music can go anywhere, because it can't. Your music has a place, but it doesn't have a place everywhere. That would be...
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, that's brilliant advice. And what I would add on to that is, when you do have an opportunity and someone says, well, we're looking for some acoustic guitar music played by a guy sitting on a bar stool. Don't send 40 pieces,
Right.
Send 3, 4,
Right.
Target it. And you can edit the pieces down. If you want to send them 2 minutes, you can send them 30 seconds of 4 pieces.
Yeah.
Because they'll get it, so that's really, you send too much and they just click, it's gone. They don't have time for that. So be really, and just what you're saying.
Yeah, you got to get out of your head sometimes. You have to look at the project. I'm sorry, Scott.
It's for the webcast. It's not for here. It's for the webcast.
Sorry. You have to look at the project, and you have to get out of your head. You really do.
Tim, what are your thoughts?
Well, what I would say,
it's been my experience that this is, particularly when it's source music, so not something that's going to be composed. I think those, composers having direct relationships with people in the film world is pretty common. For source music, when we're talking about, my clients' songs that have been pre-recorded and might show up in a film, the best, way to get your music into those projects is to have a catalog that a publisher and a good quality music publisher wants to either acquire or do some sort of co-publishing agreement with, because they've got departments in their music publishing that are solely devoted to obtaining those synchronizations, right? They're the ones that have the relationships with the music supervisors, right? And they know what's out there, they know what's happening, and they're out there pitching the work all the time. It's not all that easy to get a direct relationship with music supervisors, and even if you get a relationship with one, there's dozens out there, right? And so that's where a good quality music publisher comes into play. And most of the syncs that have come, to my clients are things that are brought to us. Their sync teams are out there, and labels too. So there are good labels out there that are now developing sync teams to license on the master side. And so they have those relationships. So ultimately, I think if you can make those direct relationships, that's fantastic. That hasn't been really what I see in the world of source music. It's more a music publisher or a record label who has those connections and is utilizing them. And so if you have a really good relationship with your publisher and you give them what they want, so if they want an instrumental version and a vocal up version and a a cappella version, and that you make sure you have all your collaboration, all your split sheets taken care of, then they love you because they know that it's going to be a quick clearance process. Yep. And so even within their own catalog, you want to be the songs that are quick and easy to clear. And if you can do that, then they'll go out and pitch it for you.
Sure. So something that we talked a lot about in preparation for this panel from an economic perspective is the type of intergenerational wealth that can be created as a result of some good placements, good licensing, and copyrights being in order. The example that always comes to mind is an old one that comes back from my days at Loyola's music industry program with George Howard. He always talked about Nick Drake, who was a folk artist in the 1970s, British guy, who was not very popular. In late 90s, early 2000s, his music ended up on the desk of a music supervisor who was placing music for a Volkswagen ad. They loved his song Pink Moon and ended up placing it. That was the first commercial that Volkswagen ever posted online in the early days of YouTube, and his catalog blew up. For the first time ever, he was on the Billboard Hot 100. His album went platinum, and this was all 40 years after his death. So his full catalog lit up, and his estate was actually able to benefit from that because he had his house in order. So there is sort of a long tail, if you will, when you think about having your copyrights, your catalogs assigned, your split sheets created, because you never know when that luck might hit. So before we close and open up for Q&A from the audience, are there any war stories y'all want to share? Examples of, big wins from a licensing perspective, or moments when maybe you didn't get it right and hit a pitfall?
Well, y'all had prepped me for that one, so I thought of one. I did, there was a film, and in the film, they, and I had done a lot of music for these guys, so they called me to license. They had a scene that was about 8 minutes long of one of the actresses dances in her bedroom in her house to herself. And they offered me a fee, which was really nice because I could do most of it myself. I brought I got a couple of drummers from Rebirth in the studio to give it a feel that I wanted on top of the other stuff I had done. But on the sheet, and they did it as a license deal, I was getting to keep the publishing. It wasn't a work for hire, which we never really got to, but so I was keeping the publishing and the master recording was all going to be mine. So on that sheet, what I call the short sheet, when they first send me it, it's like one page and it has just bullet points. We're going to use it for this. This is what it is. This is how much you're going to charge us. This is who owns it. These are the credits. And then later you get 10-page document that's a more formal license when they finally edit the film and it stays in, because it can always come out before they finish, and so they don't go through all that trouble. But on that sheet, they had a blank line that said, if we want to use this in any type of promotion or trailer or whatever, how much, put a number in for what it would cost. And they were paying me, I think, $10,000 to write this piece and record it, and I probably spent $800 recording it. I mean, it was really something I could mostly do myself. So I just put $30,000 down. I just said, I'm going to multiply it by 3. And it turned out when they did the trailer, they put the first 6 seconds of my piece in, that they then became a $40,000 payday. And that's when when the rebates were at 20%. So then I got 20% more back from the state as a recording tax benefit. So it became like this, $36,000 little project that seemed so simple at the time. So I never expect what I do to blow up, in the sense I rarely work on songs in the traditional sense of radio play and that. I do these little things, and I do hundreds of them a year. So that's the other route to this, is a bunch of little things that add up to a lot of stuff pulling in performance royalties off of film and television, as opposed to the big song that gets a lot of money in a big chunk. Mine has never been that way. My big chunks come for work for hires because they pay you a lot more when they're going to own the publishing for it. So, but I remembered that story of just writing that little dance piece, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, it's a good one. Any war stories from y'all?
I guess I'll end then kind of with the way I started. So I started with Maureen Crowe and speaking of The Bodyguard. So for me, it's the Dolly Parton song, I'll Always Love You. No one knew that that was Dolly Parton. That song was offered to Elvis, and Elvis thought that that song was crap, and he didn't want to sing it. And Maureen Crowe comes along. She loves it. She gives it to Whitney Houston, and the rest is history, as they say. I mean, that to me is just a brilliant story of how something that was, you know, dormant in a professional, wonderful woman's career, who's definitely a prolific songwriter, but that song is just like her golden, you know, stamp.
Yeah, Tim?
Well, I'll go back to where I started too, which is, you know, having your affairs in order, which it's something that was going on today. You know, one of my clients, their publisher, their sync team was out there currently trying to land relatively, you know, medium-sized payday. So it was what we would call $5,000 aside, so $10,000, a total fee of $10,000. And they pitched probably 10 songs from this catalog, and they were all ready to go, ready to clear. Well, somehow this music supervisor found a really obscure song from my client's catalog that was a collaboration with another artist from like 7 or 8 years ago. And they said, oh, well, we don't want any of those. We really want this one. And they said, but we don't have, the publisher said, we don't have that registered in our catalog. So what are the splits? Where's the paperwork? And so earlier today, I had to say, well, we don't have any of that. And, you know, doesn't the music supervisor want to go a different route? You know, can't they use one of these songs that we do have all the paperwork? So now we're scrambling, right, to try and track down the collaborator from 6 or 7 years ago to get the paperwork in order so that we can go to the music supervisor and say, yep, it's ready to clear. And so, hey, look, $10,000, is that, you know, gonna send anybody's kid to college? No, probably not. But those little $10,000 paydays, you add a few of those up during the year, and now you've got a career. Right. Now you can be a musician full time. And that's the goal, right, is to do what you love full time, and it's got to be a series of cumulative little wins like that. And so it's always frustrating for me when that can't work out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Real world.
Yeah.
So would love to take this time to open up for some questions. And we have a mic in the audience over here.
I'll bring it to you.
How you doing? The liquid lighting. Is it on?
No. Jason? Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Testing 1, 2. Checked it.
The voice of God.
Yeah, I go by the Liquid Light Experience. I've been releasing music once a week through United Masters distributors. Is there a quicker way to go through the copyright process? Because it's not copyrighted with the U.S. Copyright Office, but I do understand that upon creation that you do own the copyright. Is there a quicker way? Because as artists, it's like the way that the industry is right now, you have to keep releasing music, at least have an instrumental coming out once a week. Is there any quicker way besides sending it off, waiting 6 months, and where you can be covered?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, don't worry about the wait time. You're absolutely right in that the Copyright Office takes forever and a day to get you your registration back after you submit the application. But the critical date is the date that you apply. What I would suggest you do is that if you have a group of works where the authorship is the same, so you're the only author on maybe 5 works, I would group those together. So you're saying you're putting out a song a week. You could group 5 or 10 of those together, put them on a single application, and it sounds like there's going to be some help, you know, for you on how to do that. But you would group them together on a single application, and so instead of having to do 10 individual applications, start grouping them together where the authorship is the same, and do it a little bit less periodically.
How many can be on a single application?
It's really, the number doesn't matter. It's more about making sure that the authorship is exactly the same between each work that you try and register.
Yep, make sure you stop by the Ella Projects table in the lobby because they can definitely help you organize some of that.
But if I could ask, Tim, isn't it more advantageous to register songs individually rather than as part of a collection?
Well, in terms of registering them as both musical compositions and as sound recordings. Remember, there's two copyrights that we're talking about here. We're talking about the song and then your recording of the song. I don't know that there are. It's so long as you can register both the composition and the sound recording on a single registration. What that means is not only does the authorship has to be the same for the sound recordings, but all the authorship on the composition side has to be the same too. And then you can still register multiple works, and there aren't any downsides to that.
Another question?
So my question is, how do you get on the Jazz Fest stage this year?
That sounds like a question for Scott.
Oh, and my name is Paris Joseph, a.k.a. Baby Brown.
All right.
You're headlining Acura. Question?
Hi, my name is John. I represent an independent record label here called Bubble Bath Records. Thank you for speaking with us. My big question is, we actually hold the exclusive right to license our artist catalog, and we have 21 artists on the label, so it's a lot of different records and a lot of different songs. Would a label like ourselves be able to go and register copyrights for these artists' material, or do we have to have the artists go and register all of their own works themselves?
I wouldn't trust you to do it.
Cool.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't trust anyone to register my copyrights other than myself or my attorney. No offense, I'm sure you're a wonderful guy, but just that's one of those things. That's one of those things that can come back to really bite an artist in the butt, is that kind of just, here, you take care of everything for me. I need this to happen and I don't want to see how it gets done. No, the artist needs to know exactly what you're doing for them. So with the great service that you're offering, make sure that the artist either comes with you or they see exactly what that paperwork looks like, because they need to know exactly what you're doing for them. And they need to know that it's being done properly. They shouldn't have that kind of blind faith in you.
And I think we have time for 2 more questions.
But I like you, so don't.
My name is Raul Olivier. I'm a local actor and a filmmaker. I've run into various situations here in Louisiana where people are doing scams that are illegal in California. Would you have any suggestions for legislation, potential laws for Louisiana to maybe close some gaps, some loopholes? Because as our Lieutenant Governor told me, the best thing I can possibly do to help Louisiana is to go find legislation, laws in other states applicable to problems here and bring it to the legislator's attention, because it's much easier for them to copy somebody else's thinking. So any suggestions of how Louisiana state law could be changed to better protect the artists?
Wow, that's, in what respect? Because I'm not understanding exactly. It's such a broad question.
Yes, and deliberately so. But
do you have a particular way that you were disappointed, or?
My experience is in film, which
Okay.
so it may not be quite applicable.
Okay.
Okay, thanks so much. And I think that is all the time we have for our first panel. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure chatting with all 3 of you. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, don't go away because we have our next panel with Big Freedia coming up in just a second. Okay, if you could please take your seats. Well done, young man. If you could please take your seats. Oh. All right, so we're very delighted to introduce our next panel. We've been looking forward to this. We have a conversation between the legendary bounce artist Big Freedia and her manager, Reid Martin from Midcitizen Entertainment. Take it away, y'all.
What's up?
Hi, everybody. How y'all doing tonight?
Hey.
All right.
We've had a busy day, so we're going to attempt to unwind here. So I guess, Freedia, I just want to pick your brain, because just get to know you a little bit here, on your history with copyrights, registering your songs, sync licensing, what we're all here for. So you started in 1998, backgrounding for Katie Red. When did you actually release your first music?
My first song was in 2001.
All right.
Started in 98 with just doing the background vocals for Katie Red. In 2001, released my first single way back then.
Yeah. And what year was it when you finally registered that song?
2010. Quite a time later. You know, not knowing, coming from New Orleans and not knowing really about registering the music and the copyrights and the proper channels of what I needed to do. You know, there were so many missed opportunities for a lot of my music.
Yeah, well, you did eventually get things registered. What prompted that? Like, I know your career was obviously growing at that point, and what made you realize, hey, I probably should get all this stuff buttoned up?
Well, I started to grow outside of New Orleans even bigger. Things started to blow up for me in New York Times and a lot of different places, and I wanted to get even bigger, and I wanted my music to grow even further. So I say, well, the only way to do that, we have to register these songs and to get them on the different music platforms. And Rusty Laser, who was with me at the time, helped me to register my first project.
Did you have any issues with tracking down old writers or co-producers or anything like that?
The whole first project, when I was trying to get it copyrighted, we were able to register some of the songs, but it was so much legal issues of all of the stuff that had samples that hadn't been cleared, people who had been passed on. So we just pulled the whole project down.
But it was up for a time, though.
It was up for a time.
Yeah, yeah. So and at that point, like, it wasn't even worth trying to go figure out how to clear some of those samples, right? You just wanted to get it out.
Yeah, we just wanted to get it out to kind of, you know, make the music platform grow even bigger once again.
Yeah.
Just everything wasn't buttoned up still to that day.
Understand. When did you finally get a lawyer to, like, look at that and be like, hey, we should take some of this stuff down, and, you know, and to further make sure that you were, you know, crossing your T's and dotting your I's?
Yeah, so about 2-3 years later, got the right attorney.
Sure did.
Who made sure that whole channel of things was in the proper place, and we did the registering proper. We had everything cleared. Any samples. Gave everybody their credits. The whole process of registering has been very much better since, you know, bringing legal services on board to make sure everything was in its right place.
Right. So that's first single comes out in 2000. About 12, 13 years later, we've got everything in the right place. So if anybody is having anxiety that they don't have their paperwork buttoned up, it's okay. It will all work out. So now you've got all your copyrights in order. You've got your catalog to where you know you don't have any issues with it. When did you sign a publishing deal?
I signed the publishing deal in about 2012, And that's another reason why I had to make sure that all of my legal stuff was properly done. Because once again, the publishing deal was able to get the music even further, to get sync licensing, to get placement in different places. So I had to get my stuff in order for real.
Yeah.
And they helped me as well.
Also, it's hot under these spotlights. If there's a towel in this building or 2 towels, that would be amazing. So how did bringing a publisher on board affect your business?
Well, that made it grow a lot larger. I started being able to get my song placed in movies and different commercials, TV shows, etc. It not only helped my revenue income, it just helped everything grow on a bigger platform. My music was everywhere, you know, and then I had a little money to match with it, so that's even better. Yeah, so now that I'm at a place where I've done several commercials and several movies and stuff and have a publishing team in place, it just puts me in a better position to be able to get the new stuff that I'm working on out there and quicker into placing in different things that I want to do.
Amazing. Look at that. Faithful tour manager right there, folks. I mean, at that point too, I mean, you're an independent artist. You're financing all of the music production yourself.
I was, and I wasn't really, seeing the money that I should have been seeing coming back that I was putting out.
Right.
Maybe if I had had my stuff copyrighted and in the properly organized, I may have made some money on the back end for what I had put out.
Right, right. But then by the time the sync licensing does start to pick up, that helps you finance independent releases if you want to put out singles or whatnot.
It helped me to be able to be in a position to do so much stuff, put the project out, photo shoots, video shoots.
Yeah.
Everything that comes along with that and all of that stuff costs money.
Yeah, sure does. We're here now in 2019, and we've had some great years together for the last 4. And how has sync licensing in particular affected your career?
Well, for me, it has been very financial stability, just going forward, just being able to get that mailbox money. Ain't nothing like, sleeping and still making money. That's the best part. Waking up and you got a check that's like there and you're like, oh girl, I forgot even about this, So that's the best for me, making money while I'm asleep.
Yeah. Because it'll happen, you'll be like, oh, we got this commercial, and then about 8 or 9 months later, the actual check finally comes in.
Yes, you forget it is even on your radar.
Yeah. I think, just to interject on that point too, I have heard a little bit of the conversation that happened in the panel before, and people talking about, finding a publishing deal, and because there'll be specific sync licensing departments within those companies where that's their job. In the last year, Freedia, you've released music on a label, and any record label that an artist signs with generally is also going to have that department. And since we've signed with a label and we've had both our publishing team and our label team pitching for syncs, it's gone up astronomically, I feel like.
It has.
Yeah.
It has. The more people on the team that's pushing the music to get these syncs, it's better because it puts you in a better position to have more revenue coming in, and your songs is all over. So it has definitely grown over this last year, and with both the label and the publishing team putting their ideas together and where to target my music actually, to go in certain different things, that's movies, whatever, commercials. There's a market for everybody, so you can also try to target those markets that your music will fit in, that will get you easy syncs.
Yeah. I mean, I think if any of you are artists and you do wind up signing a record deal, The one downside is that if we alluded to, if you have a $10,000 sync and it's $5,000 per side, now $5,000 of that side goes to the master rights holder, which is the label. But if they're doing their job, which fortunately our label really did on this last go around, having a label paid for itself. In our last deal, it took us about 3 years to recoup when we had an independent project and we put out the music ourselves, to the point where we had paid off our debts from that project. And this one, the budget was significantly higher, yet we managed to recoup in 4 months off syncs alone. And so oftentimes as an independent artist, sometimes you think, I don't want to give up that revenue stream, or I don't want to give up that revenue stream, whatever it is. But if you're working with the right people, then it should be worth it. Anybody that takes money out of an artist's pocket should be growing the pie by so much that they're actually expanding your revenue. And we were fortunate in this last go around that's what happened.
Yeah, most definitely.
But yeah, I think that's also, we always talk, when we talk about sync licensing, we talk about publishers, but the right label is going to be just as involved. They're going to take half the money, but that goes towards your recoupable balance. And technically that money's been given to you already to record, to market the music and whatnot. So I oftentimes encourage people, if you do have a record deal in front of you, obviously make sure you've got a good attorney and it's vetted, but generally adding people to your team is the right move. You alluded to some missed opportunities, so we've got this big team now. Do you feel like you've got some regrets from not having your stuff buttoned up the way?
Oh, I mean, I got many regrets. I miss years of money. Yeah. I miss opportunities for any of that stuff to be in the right place, even to this day. Yeah. So I definitely miss so many different opportunities, just not having the stuff where it needed to be. But you best believe now everything moving forward is where it needs to be. And even now, if I want to use a sample that's a big sample, whatever, you just got to go through the proper channels, attorneys, record labels, whoever the song is. You just have to go through the proper channels to get all of that stuff cleared. We're actually fighting for a sample right now that I'm using on my new project, and we're just waiting on everything to be streamed in the right direction.
Yeah. But we're out ahead of it.
We are.
Yeah. I mean, so I think that is getting to something else. Do you have advice for younger artists that are coming up that might, because a lot of this stuff it feels pretty abstract, right? Like if I register like this idea of mailbox money, like it doesn't just manifest itself that way. Like things need to happen in your career, but. Oh yeah.
I mean, if you can't register it yourself, find the right person that can help you to register it. I definitely encourage everybody to register their music. A lot of times now in the music industry too, sometimes things that we might look at as, oh man, they just putting anything on the radio. It'll be that song that be that hit and getting the millions of plays. And if you don't have your stuff in order, you can miss a lot of missed opportunities. So I encourage people, just whatever it is that you're doing, try to make sure you secure your bag.
Amen.
Reid, do you want to do Q&A?
Yeah, that's actually the end of my little spiel here. So I know, does anybody have any questions for Freida or myself or both of us?
I guess you nailed it. Oh.
Hi, my name is Ainsley. I'm a local musician and songwriter. And I guess, well, first I'd just like to say it's really encouraging as someone who's kind of like fumbling around in the dark right now to know that, eventually it can all come together. So that's really nice to know. My other question is just, as an independent artist, like where do I start? Do I just like Google music publishers and then email them and like hope I get a response? Or like what's the best way to kind of like take the first step?
Are you a gigging artist? Like, is it?
I'm both a gigging artist and I also have 2 self-produced and self-published albums.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think events like this are good to get to know the people in this room. It is one of those that particular question exists in so many different forms, I feel like, on the artist level. How do I get a booking agent? How do I get a manager? How do I get a record deal? And each one is a little bit different. And I think the publisher feels kind of the most elusive. But I think the publishing part involves more networking and taking some social risks, if you will, just starting to get to know certain people and just putting yourself out there and having conversations and just seeing where they lead. A lot of it does have to do with your artist career too. You know, it was easy for Freedia to get a publishing deal in 2012, 2013, because that's when Freedia's artist career started to take off, right? You know, and so it was a necessary outgrowth of the success. And so I will say that a lot of times success begets more success. But things like finding a manager or an agent, a lot of that times you need to make sure you're doing the diligence and networking as much as possible, but then also just making, for lack of better words, your product, which is, you know, the dumbest word ever when we're describing art, but like making sure that your recorded music is amazing, your live show is amazing. That also attracts people into your life, because there's nothing more powerful than word of mouth when it comes to your music. That is the most powerful. We are unfortunately, an industry that has a massive supply and demand problem. It's not a problem. I mean, it's just the fact. Everybody that has some talent, you know, would love to play music because it's more fun than anything else, right? Because of that, you have a higher supply of good music than you've got people that are available to pay for that music, whether that's live or recorded. Oftentimes, what weeds that out is time. People just get discouraged and they quit. So if you're like Freedia and you've been going since '98, it finally started to turn over, and, you know.
Yeah. And I was at the point where I wanted to quit. It was a long time, and I, you know, it just felt like it's time to go in a new direction, do something new. Mm-hmm. And soon as that happened, you know, I was thinking this, you know, my whole career just changed, and everything started to take off for me. All the hard work that I had put in for 10 plus years started to finally feel like it was paying off. So a lot of times we're going to get disencouraged, and I encourage you to keep moving. You never know what's going to come out of your storm, and it makes your story deeper. It makes it more real when you have the passion for it, you've been through it, and when you start to see the fruits of your labor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I go for it. But to sum that up, I mean, take social risks, go out and network with as many people as you can, but also just relentlessly focus on your craft. Yeah.
Oh, my question is, so once you take care of getting things in order, as far as registering everything, getting your publishing and everything in order, and now we in the age of streaming, when you sign a publishing deal with another company as an independent artist, what is the percentage breakdown as far as streams go, like with Apple Music, Tidal, and now SoundCloud, because SoundCloud now allows you to monetize things as well. And is there another way that you can receive money through monetization, like through social media, like Instagram, Twitter, you know, with Tumblr, all of those different types of streams or avenues where your music is constantly being played by somebody else?
Right. So on the streaming side, streaming is not going to be any different than than a record store or iTunes, in the sense that those streaming services are required by law to pay out mechanical royalties to the songwriters. And so a lot of times, you know, if you're going through TuneCore or something else, they'll isolate those publishing revenues for you. I will say what makes having a publisher a lot easier in this sense is they'll look under every rock for where you're owed royalties. If you're generally, they'll charge 20% if they're just administrating your catalog. A publisher will, and it's absolutely worth it. If you get a bigger publishing deal, you might do a 50-50 split, but that generally comes with a salary or some upfront money. So again, that could be something that's good in your favor or not, depending on how it looks. But as far as the publishing revenue is concerned from those areas, it doesn't change. It's just finding a publisher makes your job a little bit easier and hunting down your money. And you pay somebody to do that for you. As far as social media is concerned, I am not aware but you know, the landscape's always changing, that there's anything that gets paid out. Now, I will say music will get taken down when a rights holder, like a label, notices it, like that it's on somebody's page. But I will say this though, there are sync revenue opportunities in social media. There's a lot of digital ads, and those, you know, we're starting to see a lot of that with Freedia as well. And those pay a little bit less, but you know, an ad agency might not want to be doing a TV thing, and they're just doing a Facebook campaign, and they've got to pay you for that. So in that regard, there is money on social media when somebody picks up your music. Does that
YouTube.
help? And well, YouTube works like Spotify in the sense that there is advertising revenue. Yeah.
Well, Instagram allows you to put music on your post now too as well.
Right.
So is that something that somebody will publish with, and they look through the rocks for all of that too?
No, I mean that to my knowledge, it's just that music's just up there. And if you happen to own the music and somebody's posting your music, you can demand that they take it down. But unless I'm missing something, which I very well could be, but if you're just adding music to your post, then I don't think it's generating anything.
I also think that it depends on the caliber of the artist too. Meaning, I can recall that one of my friends had Cardi B song on his Insta story, and they pulled it down. They wouldn't allow him to play the song. So it depends on also the force that your label or your publisher is putting behind finding out who's playing your music and trying to get every cent that they can get for you. So that's kind of what happened with that. So I'm assuming that there is some type of monitoring going on where your music is being played at.
Hi. First of all, I want to say, Freedia, thank you for putting out a Christmas release. My annual Christmas party was turned up to 11 because I played. So thank you for that.
Thank
you. But I want to give a cautionary tale about copywriting. I released a CD about 10 years ago, and I listened to someone's advice, misadvised, where they said, you know, because it's $35. It might be even more now, but at the time it was $35, and I had 10 songs on the CD, so that would be $350, and I didn't have it at the time. And so someone suggested, well, just copyright your whole work as one thing, you know. So I just paid $35 to register my CD that had 10 cuts on it. Well, if I'm submitting stuff to licensing, which, you know, 10 years ago we weren't as savvy as we are now, I just made an appointment with Ella to re-register all that, because now they have to be individual songs. So, you know, pay the $350 instead of just the $35, because, you know, if you get something licensed, they're going to want to see your copyright. And if you just say, well, you know, I had all 10 of them in this package, it's not going to fly. So just letting you all know, register your stuff individually as opposed to one solid work, because, you know, you want to get paid. So yeah.
To sum that up, don't be cheap. Spend the money.
Exactly.
Yes, register all 10.
Well, that gets back to when I asked that question in the previous panel, because the question had come up, registering copyright for a collection of songs, or individually, and you run the risk if you register them as a collection. It's cheaper, yes, but if somebody is doing a search for your song and it's deep in a collection and it doesn't come up in the database, you're out.
I went on to the copyright and looked it up, because I just put a CD out last year and I registered all those individually, but when I looked at my copyright for the old one, it just said the title and nothing else. And so, yeah, so.
Right. Point well taken. Thank you. That was great. No, we've already had you. Who else?
Hi, my name is Herbrina Gordon Godfrey, and I'm with Radio and TV Internet Radio. We educate independent artists, and we're from the River Parishes. My question is, there's a website called songregistration.com. You pay $29 for a year to be able to literally go on and register your songs. I'm trying to get Big Freedia for all my bounce artist fans. But literally register your songs cheap. So you put the songs on the site and everything's supposed to be good, and they're telling you on the site, oh, you can copyright them through copyright.gov later, but this protects you. Is that a legitimate site, and is it a legitimate move?
Never
because
heard
they're
of
paying
it.
their money.
Never heard of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust it, but I haven't heard of it either.
Yeah, so just make sure that you know, whatever you're registering through is the right site, and most likely, if it's dealing with the state, that's the right way.
Yeah.
Hey, Freedia, congratulations on all your success.
Thank you.
I just had to ask you a question. Has Warner Chappell relaxed their over-aggressive behavior towards bounce sampling?
Well, for me is, I've learned over the years to clean up all of my music, because in bounce it's so everything is samples. We use samples from everything. So I have created my own lane to go the right way and get certain things cleared and be able to use certain things and do it the proper way. So it takes a lot of patience and a lot of time and a lot of breaking down of the music to do it the right way to get the song clear. Yeah, but I'm in an okay place, and I think I've opened doors for other bounce artists to be in an okay place. They just need to make sure they do the right paperwork.
To add to that, I will say, as far as like a lot of the drum beats go that you're talking about, a lot of Freedia's catalog, modern catalog, all the drum beats are original. You know, the sounds are not samples. Like, they sound vintage, they sound like they're samples, but we're using original drums, so we don't have to deal with that.
Thanks for speaking. Thanks, Scott, for organizing this, and Nola BA. Just wanted to comment on what you said. I got an email from another company called Songguard, and when you read the fine print, it says this is not a real copyright. So go to copyright.gov. If it says .gov, it's the real stuff. So yeah, even though they're probably shut down right now. So let's raise a glass to all those people for sure.
I heard if you go to Pornhub.com, you can register your copyright. Go ahead.
Along that same track, LegalZoom, don't do it.
Oh.
LegalZoom.
Stay away.
Stay away from LegalZoom.
Okay, questions, anybody? Who's got one? Okay.
Hello, my name is Jazz White. I'm a songwriter, and this question is for you, Freedia. When you first started in your career, did you ever feel pressured by people who may have had a little bit more experience than you to change your style, and how did you combat that?
No, not. I was just. I was fresh off the porch, so everything was so authentic and raw, child. Nobody wasn't ready for me. The things that was coming out this mouth. I didn't have that problem, and I still don't. Like, they can't change me no matter what they do.
It's true.
My name is Jesse Brown, and I've seen heard your music and everything. But 2 years ago, I almost gave up my career in music. You motivated me so well that I became an inventor of a computerized guitar for all musicians around the world. It's going to be in Las Vegas for manufacturing. I might be a well-off person, but I did that. And then I learned to form all kinds of different ways of playing music and draw artistic talent using something like this and everything. And you really motivate me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
What is your advice to like young upcoming artists who, as you said, is just coming off the porch, but people see a lot of potential and talent in them, but they don't have the proper funds or connections to have the right attorney to, like, you know, sort things out just in case a label was to try to, you know, sign them?
If you don't have the proper funds for attorney, you can probably, you know, try to look for legal service that may want to work, you know, for free or help you out in a situation and tell them your story. But if not, you want to try to do as much as you can for yourself and investigate how you can register it yourself and do what you can do on your own. I mean, a lot of times in this music industry, the artists have to go the hardest because nobody's going to go as hard as you know, being the artist. So you have to be involved on every level. I mean, I'm involved with from management to glam to staging to everything that's a part of my career. I'm involved. So just make sure that you're able to have your hands in all the fires because you're going to need it.
I mean, to that end, there is very much a reason why Freedia got to where Freedia is at. And eclipsed a lot of kind of the other people that were in the same scene, if you will. And Freedia is super involved in the business, and Freedia is also so prolific on the artist side too. I mean, it's just basically nobody's out working Freedia. And I get to see it firsthand every day. I have to deal with it on my phone every day. But I mean, but truly, you know, so it is, I think as an artist, there's so many questions that, you know, other people have more answers to, but until you're able to have access to those people as you grow, which you don't early on, a lot of it has to do with you figuring out, and sometimes being wrong, sometimes being right. But that process of figuring it out and getting that education for yourself and just teaching yourself how to do it serves you so much better down the line. Freedia, like, you know, if something's coming up, like, I have zero problem being transparent and talking business with Freedia because Freedia knows the ins and outs of everything because Frida's done it. And so it's a pain in early on, but
yeah, it just makes the journey easier as you go through all the hiccups as you get down the line. You know, I've been through it all. You know, it was times where I would do shows, and when not getting my money, you know, pre-hand, the promoter would be gone when I would get off stage. So I just did a free show. So, you know, it's just things that you learn, you know, as you go on your journey. You can't get me to hit a stage now if I'm not paid in full. So it's just, you have to just think about things as you're going on your journey and say, am I making the right decision? Am I not making the right decision? And sometimes you're not really going to know. And you just got to go with your gut instincts and hope for the best outcome. And I've done that so much in my career. And thankfully, it was most of the right decision.
What are the 3 rules of management? Get the money. Remember to get the money. Don't forget to remember to get the money. That's it.
True that.
Right, you have another question, young fella? Stand up.
So I'm here to just add a little more to your show, and can you follow me on Facebook?
Sure. Just tell me your name after this.
Okay.
Tell everybody your name again.
My name is Paris Joseph, a.k.a. Baby Brown.
All right, Baby Brown.
Learning the art of promotion right here at Sync Up. You good? You guys good? Yeah. Any other questions? Well, all right, here we go.
Yeah, my name is Adrian, and I'm a music producer and also a writer. And I wanted to know, like, as far as with publishing, with BMI and ASCAP, like, what's the difference? Because I've registered a few songs on BMI, and I realized that they don't make you pay an initial fee. As far as ASCAP, they ask you for money. How do I know for sure that my stuff is being copyrighted? Because they send back an email saying that it's registered successfully, but I'm not sure because I haven't paid any money. So how does that work?
Well, it takes time for those checks to come. You got to build up streams and all of that. I'm more than sure if you at BMI or ASCAP, you're successfully registered. And being that you're a producer, just make sure that you have your paperwork in line when you're making tracks for people. You want to make sure that your splits is on there and try to get those understandings, because a lot of times once the songs or stuff are created, it's harder to get paperwork after. My attorney always telling me to get the paperwork before, because sometimes once you create a hit or whatever it may be, people will change their splits, they want more, whatever. So just try to have y'all paperwork in order.
If I could just chime in on that right quick, I'm sorry, but just to be clear, because I'm sure there may be other people with the same question. Huge difference between registering with ASCAP or BMI, which is a performing rights organization, which collects your money as a songwriter when you get played on the radio and that type of thing, and registering your copyright with the Copyright Office. They're totally different. So registering with ASCAP and BMI does nothing to protect your copyright. It just gets you in the system if your song gets on the radio and that type of thing. You still got to go to copyright.gov, Library of Congress, the federal government to register your copyright. Just make sure clear on that. Any other questions while we're still here? I'm sorry, I didn't see that one, but I see you over here. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, how you doing? My main question, I love using samples. I'm about to say, but is it a pricey process when going through and getting them cleared?
The bigger the sample, the bigger the buck. It's simple. If it's a big person, they're gonna want that money. And even sometimes, if they're not that big and it was their hit song, it's most likely the label.
Right. So I'm about to say, what is the next step? I'm about to say reaching out to them to get it cleared. The process.
You know, I usually don't deal with that part.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying.
I'm even at a point where I don't have to deal with it. I just send it off to the lawyer. But I will say, I think it depends on where you are in your career too. The fact is, if you have something that's going to start getting traction, then it's going to get noticed. But I mean, hip hop is built on samples, right? A lot of uncleared samples. So I think, you know, if you're just putting stuff out there on your own, you run the risk of things getting pulled down once you get traction on it. The hard part is reaching out to you have to get both sides cleared. You have to get publishing and the master side cleared, meaning like the actual, if you're using the audio from a song, you've got to reach out to the record label that owns the song, and they typically want a fee and then a participation in your record sales. And then you've got to reach out to the songwriters of that song and give them a piece of your songwriting income. And this all sounds hairy because it is. And so I'm giving you bad advice by telling you not to get them cleared. But at the same time, like it's a certain risk and reward, right? I mean, like you used uncleared samples and it wasn't the end of the world. But now once Freedia got bigger, we had to take those songs down. So there are certain songs in Freedia's catalog that are absolutely classic that will never be for sale anywhere. You know what I mean? And, but But once you get big enough, you gotta stop using samples, or you just gotta get them cleared.
Hello, thank you for all your advice. I was wondering, from both of you, what was something that you probably overlooked or heard a lot of times, and then until you were like really successful, you said, "Oh, I should have listened to this piece of advice, or I should have done this sooner."
For me, it was just learning the business, you know, just not knowing so much, just jumping in the game. I mean, when I started, we just was doing it for fun. So all of that business stuff, that was nowhere on my mind. And just learning the game of the music industry, that's the most important. You need to try to know the ins and outs. And that takes time, takes experience, and it takes years of getting out there, grinding, doing shows, meeting people, networking, the whole 9 yards.
This is also the boring part. You know, when you start off, like you just want to book shows and play music, right? So, yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. I'm a music industry student right now at Loyola, and I'm kind of trying to figure out what business path I want to go down. And I wanted to ask you, as you get more successful, what your essential members of your team are that you feel like you're really starting to value as you get bigger.
You say that again? The number of people on my team?
Yeah, or like which team members you find to be the most essential, like on your team as you continue to get more successful?
Well, all of them. Everybody plays a role on my team, and each person is very delicate to my team. And I couldn't do all of this by myself. I need everybody on my team. It takes a team to make an artist successful. You know, if the artist could do it all by themselves, I'm more than sure we would and keep all the money. But it's a pie that needs to be divided, and each one of my team members, you know, represents a slice of it. So it takes quite a few people, and I have a team of 12 people that works for me on a daily basis.
Just to piggyback on that question, could you name like the positions of the people in your team? Because most of us have no idea what are all the different things that people are doing.
Okay, so I have my head manager, who's Reid, who's the foreseer over everything, every aspect of my career. He's the man who everyone has to come through. I have the business manager who deals with all my financial stuff, pay everybody, payroll, the whole 9 yards. Tony, who is my tour manager, who deal with all touring. Him and Reid is in communication each and every day. Tim, who's my attorney somewhere in here, he deals with all of my legal issues, TV stuff, commercials. He deal with everything. Anything dealing with the music usually having to be signed off on. That's the man I got to talk to. So we talk a whole lot. And then, you know, everybody else that comes behind, dancers, DJ, the people who makes the stage happen. And, you know, then my glam squad, hair and makeup, nails, all those people who are a part of get me together to get on stage.
I can keep going, actually. So
I know. That's just on the personal day-to-day stuff.
Right.
That's the people who got to, when it's time to travel and get me ready, this is the team that's working on a day-to-day basis. Right. But then that's the whole record label side of things, where it's marketing,
radio, streaming.
Yeah, radio, streaming, all of those people. Then the publishing team. So it's
booking agents.
Multiple sections of teams in different areas, but the closest of the people that I work with is my everyday team.
Yeah. All right, I think we have time for one more question. Jeff?
Yes, I just wanted to thank Scott for having this sync up, but I want to point out for everybody who may be coming late, everyone should stop at the Ella Project table at the end. It's free legal services for all the musicians in the city. So we actually have it available. Also, we have the New Orleans Musicians Clinic here in New Orleans for people taking care of their good health.
Yes, and I definitely, when I started, I was a part of the New Orleans Musician Clinic, and they helped me with a lot of stuff. So use these resources, people, because they definitely can help you in some type of way.
All right, any other questions? Going one more? Okay, last one.
How you doing? Do you have a publicist, a tax attorney, financial advisor?
I forgot my publicist.
There's a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I forgot my publicist because she's the one do all the interviews, getting me on TV shows, talk shows, radio shows. She coordinates my schedule a lot. So her and Reid is back and forth. Yeah, she's the woman that makes it happen a lot and getting me all these interviews and articles in different places. Yeah, so a publicist is very important.
And you said tax attorney?
Tax attorney, financial advisor.
Business manager deals with all of that. Deals with all your finances, taxes, all of that.
Mm-hmm. Scott, you could probably have another sync up just on team members.
I'll have to check the archive. I think we may have done that, but we can do it again.
Cool. Good.
You guys good? Everybody good? Yeah. Everybody good?
Thank
okay.
y'all so much.
Well, once again, another big round of applause for Big Freedia and Reid Martin. I want to thank our earlier panel. I want to thank the New Orleans